Good day everyone, this is William Reyes from BSS English 1A. Today we learn about the varieties in English spoken and written language. In this discussion we have 7 important objectives. At the end of this lesson, you should able to demonstrate understanding on the concept of varieties of English in ASEAN context, discuss the importance of varieties of English in the both oral and written context. Thirdly, we have to identify some grammatically, lexical, and syntactic features of a post-colonial varieties of English in ASEAN context. Fourthly, we have distinguished the lexicon of some ASEAN varieties of English. Fifth, we have to demonstrate the knowledge about the concept of registers of English and spoken and written language. Second, for the last we have is we use a appropriate register in depending on the communication situation. And lastly, we have displayed the ability to adjust and cope for a communication breakdown. Piece of English. During our senior high school, you must have encountered or scenarios in the world using a English word. So for instance, we use the we or the world English or the varieties of English in class. We actually stands for the localized varieties of English as they are used or spoken for in a certain areas of Asia. In Asia context, the concept of was introduced by Braj Kachru. Who is Braj Kachru? He has introduced the famous three concentric circles of Asia Englishes. It's an attribute to Kachru presents to the three circles, which are rather in the inner circle or the ENL or English as a native language. We have also outer circle or ESL or the English as a second language. Lastly, we have the expanding circle or which is EFL or the English as a foreign language. Aside from the fact that outer and expanding circles or ESL and EFL are speaking respectively, they have been colonized by some member of the countries in Asia or in inner circle, making the varieties of speak as a post-colonial. It is then to be understood for the people have different linguistic. So when you say linguistic, it is a form of communication of a one country. So in culture, both backgrounds or intercultural communication for a significant varieties of communication. Just like expanding circle. So let's now look for what are those countries belong to expanding circle, inner circle, and outer circle. So for expanding countries, we have Israel, Nepal, South America, Zimbabwe, Egypt, Japan, Saudi Arabia, and Taiwan. For the outer circle, we have the Bangladesh, Kenya, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Ghana, Malaysia, Philippines, Nigeria, Singapore, and Zambia. Those are countries. Also we have the inner circle, which is the UK, USA, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. Curl of English. According to Bautista and Gonzalez in 2006, the structural characteristic of these new varieties are differ. This is brought about by the mother tongue or the home language of those who are learning and acquire English. And even in terms of social features, differences can also be highlighted in that there are continuum or biological, morphological, and archaeological English within some spatial community. There are the archaeological clauses for standards while the therapy throughout the comes for a closet and building a variety of midway between the collective by selective by according to Bautista and Gonzalez. Those are varieties of resulting for a types of education, a certain social classes by convey a transfer for a kind instruction in social system, especially for those coming higher income families or better educated classes. To prove 1970 as cited by Kasher, Nelson, and 2006. Questioning and answering system exhibiting different syntactic features in inner and outer expanding circles of English. Inner circle, this refers or adheres to a positive and negative response system. Here our answer aligns with the polarity of questioning. If the question is a positive, confirming answers is also a positive, while this confirming answers is a negative. Conversely, if a question is negative, confirming answer is negative also. And discarding answering is a positive, positive is conveying a positive answer. So while in outer circle there's are trends that follows an agreement and disagreement in a system. These are the creative challenges the speakers to customize to be positive and negative system. As they may do struggle to interpret the response, particularly by yes or no, without additional clarification. Those are the little concepts for inner back to lexicon vocabulary words, particularly on English from English variety of South Asia. Southeast Asia can be noted as seen as the following example. So here are the examples for lexical features. Singapore English terms such as actis shows a messy, just like nurse and graduate mothers, well educated women encouraged to have more children. Illustrate a local vocabulary. Philippine English includes words like deep, hard to understand, high blood, tense, and balikbayan box from items brought back by the Filipinos from abroad. Malaysian English features some vocabulary such as antilog, a boil disliked by a girl, and popcorn, a talkative person. Syntactic features based on Gonzalez in 1985 word order or variations in adverb placement in sentence structure by using a articles difference in applications defined indefinite and articles noun by subcategorized by non-pluralization. The count nouns in unique and plural forms a mass nouns, pronoun, subject, predicate, agreement. Instance, pronouns subjective do not align correctly with their antecedents or predicate. Tense, the aspect usage of distinct uses of verbs forms including a perfect tense where a simple past tense would be expected. Interpretation in Philippine English, according to Bautista, are certain Philippine English in a valid variety with a own grammatical and lexical features are considered a standard when they gain acceptance among educated speakers by cultural sensitivity. Recognizing a appreciation for linguistic features can enhance intercultural communication, reducing misunderstanding and improving interactions among speakers from a diverse backgrounds. You have to be aware and recognize intercultural communication as you need to be a sensitive to people around you who belong in different culture, heritage, and have their own linguistic identity. When you encounter them, you will be able to avoid misunderstanding, avoid miscommunication, breakdown, and overcome language barriers. With less difficulty since you have exposed to their own language features. This way you will be able to enhance the personal social interactions.
Good day, students. This is Teacher Dab. So I will be the one who will discuss to you about the language register and the incultural language. So when we say language registers, this is choosing a variation of communication for a appropriate context. So it is a certain language variety which is used for particular purpose or a particular social setting. So it denotes the writer's style of specialized discourse to convey his attitudes of communication to his readers. So there are types of language registers, which are the formal register, informal register, and neutral register. So when we say formal register, it is used in a serious, professional, or ceremonial settings. So it is characterized by the use of complex syntax, precise vocabulary, and a lack of constructions or colloquialism. So here are some examples of formal registers. The first is academic essay, which is published speech, complex sentences, and precise vocabulary. Another example is wedding vows, an example of extremely formal language that must be said the same way each time. And another example is business letter, which use proper grammar, avoid slang or colloquialism, and address individuals with courtesy titles such as Mr. or Miss. On the other hand, informal register is used in a casual, relaxed conversations with family or friends. So here are some examples of informal registers. Paraphrasing, like how it's going instead of how are you. Another example is casual responses, like no worries instead of you're welcome, and greetings like hey or hi in emails and text messages. So that is informal register. While neutral register is neither formal nor informal. It is often used in factual communication like newspapers or instructional manuals. So here are some examples of neutral register in writing and speaking. Examples of neutral register in writing are technical texts, emails, and presentation. In speaking, examples are giving directions, instructions, and presentations. So that will be all for language registers. Now let's proceed to intercultural communication. So when we say intercultural communication, it is the exchange of ideas, information, and meaning between people from different cultures. So it is influenced by their unique social norms, values, and ways of using language. So here are some examples of intercultural language. An example is when delivering a speech, a president from one culture may use highly formal to maintain authority, while a priest might use a more relatable, simple language to reach the general public. So here are some key factors in intercultural communication, which are the social norms, values, and language. So when we say social norms, these are the unwritten rules that govern behavior in a culture. Examples include how people greet each other and show respect, and how they handle conflict. And values, these are the beliefs and principles that are important to a culture. They influence how people view the world and make decisions. And lastly, language. Language is a powerful tool for communication, but it can be also a barrier to understanding. Different languages have different ways of expressing meaning, and even within a single language, there can be a regional or cultural variations. So why do you think that intercultural communication is important? So intercultural communication is important because it can help people understand and work with others from different cultures. It can reduce misunderstanding. Intercultural communication can help people avoid confusion and build strong relationships. It can also promote empathy. Intercultural communication can help people become more open-minded and empathetic. And it can also break down stereotypes. Intercultural communication can help people understand and challenge their own biases. So that would be all for my topic. I hope you learned something from this lesson. Thank you for listening.
Good day to each and everyone. I am your teacher, Stacy Connie Loxton, and we will discuss for today is all about cultural texts. But in a previous video, my co-teacher already discussed the register of communication, the varieties of English and intercultural communication. So, by understanding their topics, we already know that intercultural communication, the register of English, plays a vital role in our life to have a better communication. So, dear student, it is important to learn the different varieties of English as well as their features and also the register of English for us to be able to have a better communication and to avoid what misunderstanding and miscommunication. So what are the cause of misunderstanding and miscommunications? But let's first discuss what is cultural text. Cultural text, it refers to anything that communicate ideas, beliefs, practices in a culture. So, I give you an example: books, movies, language, and etc. So, now let's move forward. What are the causes that we encounter of having a miscommunication? Number one is pronunciations. So, we have a big problem with pronunciation. So, phonology. So phonology, it is the study of the sounds, the pattern of the sounds. For instance, crash, crash. The crash means you're having romantic feelings to a certain person. Number two, crash means crumble. So it is important to first learn the phonology. Furthermore, this English speaker have a variety of English. Means in this world we have a lot of accents. For instance, in China, their thank you is thank you. But in foreign countries, for instance, UK, Canada, they say thank you. In Philippines, we pronounce in a full term, in full syllable, while in Americans, they shorten the word. I give you an example. Gotcha. In Philippines, got you. So according to the research of Kentros and Nelson in 2006, the three circle of model claim that most of the time we have the problem of miscommunication, misunderstanding. It is because of our mispronunciation. So they believe that most of the outer circle and expanding likely have a different varieties of English, unlike the inner circles. So what is English varieties? Yes, it is the accent. Let's move forward to three circles of modern, the research of Miss Kentrus and Nelson in 2006. So what are the three circles of model? So number one, we have the model inner circle. So in the inner circle, they are the native English. So here it's na under dito ang UK, the United Kingdom, US, United States of America, and Canada, Australia. So they are known as the one who set standard of English varieties. Let's move forward to outer circle. So in outer circle, this circle has a history of colonial. For instance, the Americans they colonized the Philippines. So we adopt their English. So another example of country that has a colonial history by a native English is India, Nigeria, Philippines, and Singapore. Because of that, we adopt their language because they colonize our country, but we mix it. The reason why we have a problem in pronouncing a word in English, it is because sometimes we often mix our native language and the foreign language. Let's move forward to the last one, which is expanding circle. So this circle includes countries where English language is learned as a foreign language, such as China, Japan, and Brazil. These varieties considered as norm dependent. Norm, yes, norm dependent, which means is that they are dependent to the standard of the inner countries. So what are the inner countries? Those are the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. So now let's move forward to the interpretations of how we pronounce word. So are you ready? Let's go. We often have a mistake in pronouncing a word. For instance, an American man asks you, excuse me, miss, did she ask you? And of course, will be offended. We will be offended with that. Because why would he ask? Did she ask? Ask as in ASS. So with that, we already have miscommunication. So it is also important that we should be conscious of pronouncing. So now let's compare the American pronunciation and Philippines communication. Yeah. So in American they say gotcha. In Filipino we say gotcha. So why gotcha? Because they drop a sound. They make it short. While in Filipino we read it in a full, like written. So let's move forward. So in cultural barrier, it is not only here the different language that cause a miscommunication, a misunderstanding. It is also the form of gesture. For instance, like this, it means approve. But in other country, it's offensive. For instance, in Greece and Italy, it is offensive. Another example, like this, in Filipino, other country, it means okay, but in China, it means money. So, what is called shake hands? In Arab, it's haram. While in Western world, it, it's a common practice after a conference or a two presidents shaking their hands. So that's all. I hope you understand and have a good day. Once again, my name is Teacher Stacy Colin Lacson. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. I am Ben Arbasa from the Bachelor of Secondary English from Section 1A. Today, we'll discuss the shared ownership of English across countries and how this impacts communication. We'll also touch on the cultural variations in nonverbal communication, particularly handshakes. Understanding these concepts is vital for effective interaction in a multicultural world. Verbal communication. English as a shared language. English today is a global lingua franca, meaning it is used as a common language by people who do not share the same native tongue. While English originated in specific regions, its use has expanded, becoming a tool for global communication. The unique aspect here is that English no longer belongs to native speakers alone. Speakers from different countries, whether in Asia, Europe, or Africa, have shaped the way English is used. They bring their own cultural nuances, accents, and interpretations, creating a diverse and dynamic form of communication. However, this shared ownership also comes with challenges. Misunderstandings. Differences in pronunciation and vocabulary can cause confusion, like the difference between elevator and lift. Turn-taking issues. Cultures have different norms for how conversations flow, which can lead to awkward pauses or interruptions. Cooperative communication. As Maker 2000 suggests, communication breakdowns happen when speakers don't adapt their language, such as using idioms unfamiliar to non-native speakers. Despite these challenges, English enables global communication and speakers adjust to ensure understanding. Nonverbal communication. The handshake. United States. A firm handshake is the norm symbolizing confidence and professionalism. It's a common practice in business settings and personal interactions. For France, a soft handshake is preferred, reflecting politeness and subtlety. It's less about assertiveness and more about showing courtesy. While for Germany, a firm handshake is common among men, often accompanied by a slight bow. This shows respect and a recognition of hierarchy. For Japan, in Japan, a handshake is typically firm but accompanied by a bow, which signifies respect and acknowledgement of the social structure. While for Middle East, handshakes in the Middle East can be more personal with one hand placed on the forearm of the other person. This gesture conveys sincerity and deeper respect. Each of these handshake styles is deeply rooted in cultural values, and recognizing them is essential to building respect and trust in international interactions. In conclusion, understanding the shared ownership of English and the cultural differences in nonverbal communication can greatly improve our interactions across diverse cultures. By adapting our language and gestures, we demonstrate respect and enhance mutual understanding. That's all, and thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to share an informative learning video with you today. I am Nurzaina K. Salim, your discussant for today. Before I start, I want you to remember knowledge is not free, so listen carefully. Today, I am going to explain the topic about the two remaining approaches to intercultural communication: the interpretative and critical. The various approaches to intercultural communication scholarship have their roots in the disciplines that helped shape the field. It's not that just easy to develop these approaches because there are bases on how they develop it. These bases are anthropology, linguistics, and psychology. The influence of each of these fields can be seen in the way we study communication across cultures today. The field of linguistics helps us understand the relationship between language and other cultural systems. The field of anthropology helps us recognize culture patterns and realize the importance of nonverbal communication. The field of psychology brings to light the role of human cognition in understanding and categorizing the patterns of behavior of members of other cultures. So now, let's have the interpretative approach. Interpretative researchers are interested in describing human behaviors which they believe to be unpredictable and creative. They believe that culture is both created and perpetuated through the means of communication. These methods include field studies, ethnographics, observations, and participant observations. Interpretative researchers typically become directly involved with members of the communities they are studying and often form close friendships with them. The interpretative approach studies culture from the perspective of members of the cultures being studied, rather than through the framework imposed by the researchers. They seek to find and describe patterns in communication and approach research in holistic and subjective way. Interpretative researchers seek to answer questions related to what it means to be a member of particular community and how participants in communities achieve membering. For example, when conducting her study of elderly Japanese people forming virtual communities online, Kanayama was interested in describing the behaviors of the elderly people and understanding how they interacted with one another when forming virtual communities. She found that self-disclosure through sharing stories and memories was an important part of achieving membering in the virtual community. Now, let's move on to the critical approach. The critical approach views reality as subjective and focuses on the importance of studying the context in which communication occurs. Critical scholars views culture in terms of power, struggles, and study cultural differences specifically as they relate to an equal distribution of power within society. They are interested not only in studying human behavior across cultures but also in affecting change in society. They believe that by their study and analysis of the role of power in cultural encounters, they can assist people in opposing the oppressive forces in society. Critical scholars believe that the goal of intercultural research is to identify and make explicit power differences in order to liberate those individuals who lack power in society. In examining the role of communication in creating group identities, critical scholars wish to deconstruct assumptions about reality in order to challenge social realities that reinforce exploitation of some groups within society. In most nations, power is not distributed equally between the majority and minority cultures. To shorten these two approaches, when we say interpretative approach, this focuses on describing behaviors within cultural context. Assumption of reality, which are subjective, emphasizes the role of individuals in creating meaning. The methods are the participant observation and field studies. The contribution, it's the highlights the importance of context in understanding communication and cultural differences. While in critical approach, this focus aims to change behavior by examining power dynamics in communication. The assumption of reality is that subjective and material. Culture is a site of power struggle. Methods is that textual analysis of media and critical discourse. The contribution recognizes the influence of economic and political forces on communication and emphasizes that all intercultural interactions involve power dynamics. That's all for today's wonderful learning. I hope you had fun learning with me. Thanks for watching.
So good morning everyone, I am Angel ni M. Sofrino and today I will going to discuss the core source of misunderstanding in 2016 and the 3K approaches to studying intercultural communication. So effective communication is crucial in any interactions, especially in intercultural contexts where individuals from diverse backgrounds come together. CARS 2016 identifies several sources of misunderstanding that can arise in communications, so which are the ambiguity, performance-related misunderstanding, language-related misunderstanding, gaps in world knowledge, and local context. So, ambiguity refers to the lack of clarity or explicitness in communication. When messages are not clearly articulated, they can be interpreted in multiple ways, leading to confusion. This can occur with vague language or when the speaker assumes shared knowledge that the listener may not possess. Second, performance-related misunderstanding. This type of misunderstanding involves communications breakdowns due to issues such as the slip of the tongue, mispronunciation, or mishearing. These issues often stem from unclear speech or environmental factors that hinder effective listening. Such misunderstandings can significantly impact the clarity of the message being conveyed. So third, we have the language-related misunderstanding. Language-related misunderstanding arise from grammatical errors or the use of unfamiliar language. When sentences are ungrammatical or poorly constructed, they can lead to misinterpretation. This highlights the importance of language proficiency and clarity in communication, particularly in intercultural exchanges where participants may have varying levels of language skills. So fourth, we have the gaps in world knowledge. Gaps in world knowledge refer to the lack of content knowledge that can affect understanding. Different cultural backgrounds may lead to differing perspective on certain topics, and without adequate background knowledge, individuals may struggle to comprehend or engage with the conversation effectively. So last but not the least, we have the local context. So understanding the local context is essential for effective communication. This includes recognizing the rules of different participants in a conversation and the specific cultural nuances at play. Misunderstanding can occur when individuals fails to consider the context in which the communication take place, leading to misinterpretation of intent and meaning. So now, let's proceed to the approaches to studying intercultural communication. Understanding intercultural communications requires various frameworks that allow for a comprehensive analysis of interactions across culture. Martin and Nakayama in 2010 present 3K approaches to studying intercultural communications, which are the social science or functionalist approach, interpretative approach, and critical approach. So, first we have the social science or also known as the functionalist approach. The focus of this approach seeks to describe and predict behavior in intercultural contexts. It aims to identify patterns and correlation in communications practices across cultures. The social science approach assumes that reality is external and describable. It suggests that culture significantly influences communications behavior. Researchers typically use surveys and observations to gather data on communications, practices, and cultural variations. This approach effectively identifies cultural differences and variation in communication styles. However, it may overlook the nuances of interactions and the context in which these